What if the thoughts you whisper in the silence of your mind aren't just fleeting, private echoes, but actual signals? What if the things you feel, even the ones you never say out loud, leave your body as vibration, as resonance, and touch the invisible fabric of reality? What if the universe isn't something outside of you, not a distant sky or a mystical force you're begging to hear you, but a living field, intelligent and responsive, constantly reading the energy you emit? Every day, every breath, every beat of your heart. What if life isn't waiting to be convinced, but simply waiting for you to become clear? We've been taught to believe that talking to the universe is some sort of poetic fluff, a hopeful fantasy, a metaphor we use when we're desperate to feel less alone. We repeat mantras. We visualize dream lives with shut eyes and clenched fists. We try to will a better world into existence through affirmations and vision boards. But deep down, a question lingers. Why does it feel like no one is answering? What if I told you it's not because the universe isn't listening? It's because it's listening to everything. Not just your words, not just your dreams, but the frequency beneath them. It's listening to the contradiction between what you say and what you feel, between what you want and what you believe you're worthy of, between your longing and your fear. And it's answering faithfully, but it can only reflect what you broadcast. Let that sink in for a moment. This isn't about magic. This isn't about superstition. This is about physics. There is a principle in quantum mechanics called non-locality. It tells us that two particles that once touched, even if separated by galaxies, still affect one another instantly. They are entangled. One moves, the other moves, without delay, without a signal in between. Now stretch that idea. What if your consciousness, your very awareness, is entangled with the field of everything? What if your thoughts don't stay trapped in your skull? What if your feelings ripple out into the sea of possibility like waves on water? And what if, by the way you think and feel and breathe, you are constantly shaping probability? Reality at the quantum level is not solid, it's energy, it's potential. It's particles suspended in a state of maybe. And those particles collapse into form, into the physical world, when observed, not just by looking at them with eyes, but by interacting with them through intention, focus, and feeling. That moment of collapse is how thought becomes thing. But here's what most people miss. It's not just about thinking hard, it's about becoming coherent. You see, your body is not just a vehicle, it's an antenna. Your heart and brain are electromagnetic organs. They emit waves, they pulse signals. The stronger and more ordered those signals are, the clearer your message becomes to the field. And when your heart and mind sync, when your emotions and thoughts align with presence, you enter a state scientists call coherence. In coherence, your body becomes a beacon. Your signal becomes clean, stable, unmistakable. And the universe, it begins to mirror you, not because you manipulated it, not because you begged for it, but because you resonated with it. Let's talk about what this actually feels like. Because coherence isn't just some technical term from a research paper. It's a state of being. It's what happens when you stop forcing and start aligning. It's what happens when your breath softens, when your mind slows, when your heart opens, not because everything is perfect, but because you choose presence even in the midst of chaos. When you enter coherence, your nervous system shifts. Your body stops bracing, your heart rhythm smooths out. Your thoughts become more like flowing water than lightning strikes. And in that space, you feel something remarkable. A quiet clarity, a warmth that doesn't come from logic, a sense that you are being heard before you even speak, not by someone else, but by everything. You've felt glimpses of this before, maybe in the stillness of the early morning, maybe in the way your chest lifts with peace when you sit by the ocean, maybe in the moment you stop trying to fix everything and something finally clicked. That feeling? That's coherence. That's the frequency the universe understands. Because the universe doesn't respond to effort. It responds to essence, to the real vibration you hold when no one's watching. Now here's something most people don't realize. When you try to fake coherence, when you chant, "I am enough," but feel like a fraud, the field doesn't respond to your words. It responds to the signal underneath. You can't trick energy. You can't deceive resonance. You might fool yourself for a while, but the universe hears the whole transmission. The joy and the doubt, the hope and the fear, the declaration and the desperation beneath it, and it reflects all of it back to you. So what do? You slow down, you stop striving, you stop chasing perfection, and you get honest. Honest about what you really feel, honest about what you really believe. Because coherence doesn't mean positivity all the time. It means integrity. It means internal alignment. It means that the story you tell yourself matches the truth in your chest. Even if that truth is, I'm scared right now. Even if that truth is, I don't know what comes next. When you meet yourself where you are, fully, compassionately, without trying to change the moment, you begin to shift naturally. You move out of performance and into presence. And from that space, something beautiful begins to happen. You don't just ask the universe for change. You become the frequency of change. You don't just wish for love. You emit love. You don't just imagine abundance. You live with a grateful breath for what already is. And your signal stabilizes. Your field strengthens. And the external begins to organize around the internal. Not because you forced it, but because you matched it. Because you tuned your dial to the station that already plays the music you long to hear. Because you tuned your dial to the station that already plays the music you long to hear. And when that happens, when your inner world becomes congruent with your intention, life responds not with fireworks, but with whispers. The call you weren't expecting, the moment of ease where there was once resistance, the sudden idea that solves the problem you've been wrestling for months. It feels like coincidence. It feels like luck. But it isn't. It's coherence mirrored. It's reality reorganizing itself to fit the pattern of your stable signal. And once you've tasted this, you can't go back to forcing. You can't go back to begging the world to change. Because you know in your bones that real power never came from pressure. It came from presence. Let me tell you something tender. Most people who fail to manifest aren't lazy. They're not unworthy. They're not broken. They're just scared. Scared it won't work. Scared they'll be disappointed again. Scared that nothing on the outside will ever truly reflect the truth they carry deep inside. And that fear scrambles the signal. It makes the frequency flicker. One moment, there's hope. The next, doubt. One moment, confidence. The next, panic. And the universe doesn't punish them for it. It doesn't shame them. It simply mirrors them exactly as they are. That's what makes this so breathtaking and so confronting. There's nowhere to hide in energy. Your words don't matter if your body is still screaming, I don't trust this. Your affirmations don't land if they float on top of a sea of unresolved pain. So what's the answer? It's not to become perfect, it's to become available. Available to feel, available to be honest, available to return, again and again, back to center, back to breath, back to coherence. You see, your nervous system is like a tuning fork. When you strike it with fear, the vibration it sends out is chaotic, jarring, unstable. But when you strike it with love, with appreciation, with surrender, the note rings clear, and everything around you, people, opportunities, even the cells in your body, begin to hum in harmony with that note. This is why your field matters more than your effort. It's why your frequency matters more than your plans. Because your frequency is the invitation. It's the signal that says, this is what I'm available for. This is what I'm aligned with. This is who I've become. And life, ever faithful, answers with experiences that echo that truth. Now let's talk about how this looks in the messiness of daily life. Because this isn't just a spiritual high. It's not something that only works when you're meditating on a mountaintop. It's meant for you when you're late to work and the baby's crying and your email won't send. It's meant for you when your heart breaks, when your plans fall apart, when your trust wavers. Coherence isn't a special occasion state. It's a skill. And like any skill, it builds through practice, through tiny choices, through micro moments. You pause instead of reacting. You breathe instead of bracing. You soften your chest instead of hardening your jaw. You look for one thing, just one, you can appreciate even when everything feels out of place. And slowly your baseline shifts. You become less volatile, less dependent on circumstances to feel safe. You begin to carry safety within you. And the field feels that. It feels your regulation. It feels your steadiness. And it begins to echo it back in the form of people, places, and timing that feel like grace. And you realize, oh, this isn't just about getting what you want. It's about becoming someone who no longer needs to chase. Because the things you used to pursue begin to arrive, not because you deserve them more, but because you stopped pushing them away with frantic energy, because your signal became simple, pure, consistent. And that, more than any technique, is what creates miracles. Not because the universe decided to finally love you, but because you finally stopped blocking what was always flowing your way. It's not about forcing yourself to be grateful. It's about becoming still enough to notice what's already good. It's not about controlling every thought. It's about returning over and over to the ones that feel like home. This is how your field becomes strong. Not by perfection, by repetition. Gentle, intentional repetition. You practice presence. You practice relaxation. You practice appreciation. And those practices become patterns. And those patterns become personality. And your personality? It's the long-term signal you broadcast into the field every single day. If that personality is wired for worry, the world feels threatening. If that personality is wired for lack, money feels scarce. If that personality is wired for doubt, love feels distant. But when your nervous system gets used to coherence, when trust becomes familiar, when gratitude becomes your default instead of your effort, everything shifts. The people you attract change. The way you speak changes. The choices you make reflect a different version of you. And without trying, you begin to live the very life you use to only imagine. That's the magic, isn't it? Not that things fall into your lap, but that you become someone who walks into the right room at the right time. Someone who speaks up when it matters. Someone who notices the open door before it closes. Someone who acts not from fear, but from flow. And suddenly everything feels easier. Not because the world got simpler, but because you stopped swimming upstream, you stopped chasing, you stopped proving, you let your energy do the talking, and it spoke so clearly the universe had no choice but to answer. Because it always does. It always has. All it needed was your clarity. Because it always does. It always has. All it needed was your clarity. Now pause for a breath. Not a shallow one, a real one. Feel it enter your body, slow and full. Let it reach the spaces you usually rush past. Let it soften your shoulders, release your jaw, melt the tension between your thoughts. This is the entry point, not effort, not performance, presence. Because coherence isn't something you force into place. It's something you return to, gently, again and again. And in returning, you remember something you've known all along. You've never been separate from the field. You've only been scattered within yourself. The moment you gather your awareness, the moment you let your emotions flow without judgment, the moment you stop needing to become and start being what's already true, you become whole again. And in that wholeness, your signal sings. It doesn't beg. It doesn't convince. It simply rings out like a clear bell across the landscape of reality. And what responds is everything. The field doesn't need convincing. It needs congruence. It needs you to become one with your own intention, not to plead with it, but to align with it. Like a dancer who doesn't push the music, but listens for the beat and moves from that still place. So now I want you to consider something profound. What if every moment you've ever struggled was not evidence of failure, but evidence of a signal that just wasn't yet clear? What if disappointment was feedback, not punishment? What if the frustration you felt was your inner self trying to get your attention, trying to say, there's another way, a deeper signal, a clearer voice? You don't need to become someone else to speak with the universe. You need to become fully yourself, the self that is quiet enough to hear, still enough to feel, honest enough to admit the longing beneath the performance, whole enough to hold both the desire and the doubt in the same breath. That's the self the universe reflects. Not the curated one, not the forced one, the true one, the open one, the coherent one. And when you begin living from that space, you stop needing constant validation. You stop chasing signs and start becoming one. You stop waiting for proof that you're on the right path, because you can feel the alignment in your bones. You walk lighter, not because your life is perfect, but because your frequency is consistent. And when your frequency is consistent, everything gets easier. Decisions become clearer. Boundaries become natural. Opportunities come without pressure. Love doesn't need to be earned, because you no longer send mixed messages to the field. You don't say one thing while feeling another. You don't cling to the outcome while doubting your worth. You speak with your whole self, and the field listens and replies in ways that bypass logic and defy planning, in ways that make you whisper, of course. Of course it showed up now. Because coherence speaks a language that time can't touch. It bypasses effort. It accelerates connection. It turns ordinary life into synchronicity, and it turns waiting into witnessing. You witness your own growth. You witness your own power. You witness that the reality you used to try to force is now flowing toward you without strain. And maybe that's the point of all of this, not to control life, but to be in relationship with it, to trust that your energy is more influential than your effort, to trust that your state of being is shaping your world more than your to-do list ever could, to trust that clarity, authenticity, and emotional integrity are enough, not as a strategy, but as a way of living. And so now, with everything you've remembered, with everything you felt in your chest, in your breath, in the quiet space behind your eyes, I invite you to mark this moment, not as an ending, but as a return to yourself, to your signal, to the truth that you are not here to chase the universe. You are here to commune with it, to speak with it in its native tongue, coherence. And from this moment forward, let that be your language. Not perfection, not performance, but presence. Let your presence be your request. Let your authenticity be your invitation. Let your steady, honest frequency be your declaration. I am broadcasting. I am here. I am whole. I am not chasing outcomes. I am tuning into alignment. I am not proving my worth. I am remembering it. And the field is listening, as it always has. And now that you've quieted the static, now that you've softened the noise, you can hear the reply. It's not a voice. It's not a sign. It's a shift, a pull, a knowing that you've stepped into harmony. Not because the world outside you has changed yet, but because the world within you has. So breathe and listen. The universe is no longer something you talk to. It's something you talk with. And the conversation has already begun.